All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Sales Vitamin Podcast. I have a special guest for you today, Marcus Chan. That's how you know him on LinkedIn, and that's how you see him. And he is the owner and the founder of Vinley Consulting Group. He's also the author of a little ebook called The 7 Simple Tips to More Appointments Regardless of the Economy. And that's certainly appropriate in sales. So Marcus, thanks for coming on today in the early onset of this podcast, man. We're fortunate to have a guest like you.
Hey, John, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to contribute some vitamins, hopefully, that the audience can take away and go away from this podcast with something they can immediately put in action to get some quick results.
Absolutely. And we're going to focus today on prospecting. That's where Marcus excels. So what do you think, Marcus, the biggest prospecting skill that you see is lacking out in the market? And you're a sales pro. You sold for a living. You were in the industry. Now you're a consultant. What do you see lacking on the prospecting side, or what do people struggle with?
Yeah. So I think the first piece is what I see from majority companies, large, small, whether they have resources or not, is they don't properly give the right tools for professionals to go out and prospect. Okay. And I'm not talking about like technology or tech stacks, because that stuff, yeah, that's important to a certain extent. But I'm talking about like when you think about those who are truly great at sales, right? And I see in the media a lot, it's often glamorized. It's all about closing, being a great closer, coffees for close, which is great. But those who are truly great at sales are great at prospecting. So when many people join an organization, whether they're brand new or they're tenured, there's not much of a focus in development. How do you become a great prospector? Like having the right tools, the training, the development to truly excel in prospecting. So, and when you think about this, like you can be a great closer and great presenter, but once you if you don't have enough deals in your pipeline, you're not going to close them, or you're not going to get to the numbers you want because you simply don't have enough on the top end. So at the end of the day, when companies need to focus on is giving their employees and the professionals the tools to be successful. That's the training, the development, the ongoing support to be great at prospecting. And that goes from not just like sales training, but also like even like mental training, right? Like putting them in a position where they can go and win and get more appointments. Because those who know how to hunt and fill their calendar full of quality appointments, they never starve. They never starve because they always know they can generate more because they have true skills to get more leads into the door. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you have a program that you teach, I believe it's called the Ninja program. Is that right? Is that kind of your process?
Yeah. So it's
about that.
Yeah. So it's funny because I initially built that program. Well, let me back up. The reason I built this whole program was, after being in corporate America for 14 plus years, before I even built it out, one thing I observed, like I would literally hire, I would literally interview 100 plus people a year minimum. Okay. And I would hire about 20, 30 people as a director. And before that, I was hiring tons of people. So while I was doing tons of interviews, and I would find these people that I'd bring in, and they'll be, great at their job, right? But most of them did not know what made them great, okay? And that meant everyone else that didn't get hired definitely didn't know how to be successful. And I see that a lot from a lot of companies. So a lot of times people hire someone, they throw them into the water and say, go swim. And they don't have the tools, the structure, and the process to be successful and to win at sales, right? So I saw it as a huge opportunity. And the company I was with, my last company, they had pretty good training, but those that truly excelled were the ones that had, more of a structure. And that was a very small percentage. So them underneath me, I made sure I gave them that structure. So I thought to myself, okay, you know what? This is a huge opportunity. Because when I look in the marketplace, I saw so many pieces where, hey, a little bit of training on maybe just prospecting, maybe a little bit of training on just closing, little pieces you put together. So I'm like, okay, if I can build that gap, if I can fill that gap and build a comprehensive A to Z step-by-step training, whether you are brand new or been in sales for 20 plus years, and fill in all the little nuances that most people do not realize, and build that out to be a step-by-step training, that could be a massive value. So that's what I built. So at the time it was called Sales Ninja School. And I've gone through 4 revamps now, because each time as we enroll more people, I get their feedback to re-clarify certain things. Any areas I miss, I've gone back and I filled in. So now I completely revamped it. I'm on my 4th edition. I'm actually recording everything next couple of weeks. But now it teaches everything. It's now called Six Figure Sales Academy, right? Because now I'm gonna cover pretty quickly the results people are getting, right? So with that being said, that program now, it focuses on everything from the mindset piece, which it's all built in through the whole everything, and it teaches you how to prospect, generate leads, close deals, close 7-figure plus deals, and get promoted, and basically everything you need to know in a training, whether you're new or tenured. And it's designed to fill the gaps of all those pieces that most leaders don't have a way of training on. So it's been hugely successful. I ran a beta launch about 4 weeks ago. I did a test beta group. Incredible results. I mean, just people are going out, they're absolutely destroying their numbers as a result, because a lot of it has to do with like getting the right tools, the right everything. It's basically, it's a blueprint for success. And if you want to build a great house, you can't just say, hey, here's some wood and a hammer. Give them the blueprint, give them the tools on top of that. And then you are highest likely to have success if you put the work in.
Yeah.
But like anything else, if you don't put the work in, nothing happens.
It seems that most of and from my experience and my background and yours as well, the training, if you want to call it training, that you're going to get from a sales standpoint is more product and feature related.
Yes.
Here's why we're good. Here's this PowerPoint. Go talk about it.
Yes.
Right? That's totally kind of contradictory, or maybe that's not a good word, but different how you would teach someone to go sell. I mean, that would be, those are important things, but that's not really the selling piece of it.
Yeah, I'll give you a real good example, right? So before, I started my own business and I was in corporate America. And it was really interesting because I would see how reps were like kind of trained to think that way, right? Like they would come in and I would teach them zero product knowledge for weeks. And they would be like, hey, can you give me some product knowledge? I'm like, that's not important. And they'd be like, what? Like, I'm like, well, I'm like, you don't need product knowledge quite yet. And what I would do is I would indoctrinate them, if you will. I would train them on their mindset first, reframing their mind, and I'll teach them step by step how to prospect, right? At the end of the day, the mistake I've found when companies focus on the product knowledge first, yes, it could build a false sense of confidence. But what it teaches a rep to do is to go out and vomit features and benefits. So they go into that sales process, they are uncomfortable with asking the right questions. So instinctually, they just start vomiting. They say, ugh, and there's a dead silence in the meeting. They're like, oh, let me tell you about XYZ features and benefits and how awesome we are. Let me tell you the company history, because they've been indoctrinated on company history. Like, nobody cares your company's been around for 50 years. Nobody cares you have Series C funding. Nobody cares about those things, okay? Like, all they want to know is, can I trust this person? Do you know my business? And can you solve my problems and solve my needs?
Yeah.
They don't care about your features and benefits, right? And the only way you can do that is if you have a really solid process up front, right? So I would focus on all the right things up front. So from prospecting to asking them the right questions up front. Because really, if you think about this, the top sales professionals ask really great questions on the phones, to in the appointment, and really 90% of really a whole sales cycle is really questions.
Yeah.
The right questions. And then it's really a very small amount of pitching, right? It's really, you know what? Okay, now I've uncovered you need A, B, C, D, and E. Here's this. Do you like it? Would you like to buy? I'm simplifying a little bit, but that's how a top pro does it. It's not taking 9% of the time trying to pitch features and benefits and doing demos over and over and over. It's understanding that prospect. It's a prospect's world we live in today. And when you focus on the prospect, you will win more deals, build more raving fans, and create customers for life as a result.
Yeah, I noticed in your ebook, I thought one of the points was really good, was the separation you said is in the preparation.
Yes.
And I also kind of got the feel in your book, it's not necessarily this whole, let me go spray in quality or quantity. I should say, and
Yeah.
just go a
Yeah.
numbers game. But the separation is in the preparation. Talk about that. That's pretty important, I think, from the standpoint of
Yes.
prospecting.
Yeah, when I talk about the separation and preparation, it's really across the board for everything, and especially for prospecting. There is very much the spray and pray methodology, and I see it a lot still to this day. Which yes, can it work? It can to a certain extent. At the end of the day, yes, some people are happy that 1% conversion, 2% conversion, so they're like, I'm going to send out thousands of emails and get a 1% conversion, and they're really happy. That doesn't make any sense. That really makes no sense. And in that mythology of let me go out there and just keep trying and trial and error, try to get in front of as many people as possible and send many DMs, call many people, that doesn't make any sense. Versus you slow down, you take time to properly prepare, right? Like truly understanding who your target market is, where are they hanging out, and then you're creating your own target list to focus on of the most likely to buy prospects of the target market, et cetera. And then by doing that, you focus on that, you can have a higher conversion, you can have better copy, you're going to sound better on the phones, you'll have more confidence, because you're taking time to properly prepare. Like, the old Abe Lincoln quote, if I had 8 hours chopped down a tree, I spend, 6 hours sharpening my axe. That old adage definitely applies to prospecting. And to give you an example, right? Because I was told to do the same thing, to spray and pray, like go knock on doors, go canvass as many doors as possible, go call as many people as possible. And I tried it. I tried for a while. It didn't work. In fact, by doing that, I was put on almost a performance plan as a result, right? Like,
Yeah.
like if it was new, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. But only by making that shift and being more specific and granular. Like before, it would take me literally it would take me all week when I first started to book maybe 4 or 5 appointments at best. And they weren't even quality appointments. By taking the time to properly prepare, do my research, and hunt with a sniper rifle versus a shotgun, I took that amount of time, the all week, to book 4 or 5 appointments, and I would book 8 to 10 appointments in 2 to 3 hours, right? And I was getting a little bit better on the phones, but I was just more tactical. I was more specific. I was more granular. I had focus, and that created better results. And a lot of times I see, especially in SaaS right now, because there's a lot of them are still using these auto dialers, right? And they're dialing, and then once it connects, the SDR answers, and they're doing like thousands of calls a day, right? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? Because again, it's just feeding into that mentality of the dial, and hoping that you get that. Versus, hey, you know what? Let me make sure, number one, I have the right place to go fishing, and then make sure I have the right bait, and make sure I have specific bait to those people, because when I call them, if they answer, it's booked. If it got to the point where, as long as a prospect answered, because of my preparation, I had a 90% plus chance of booking as a result, right? There was no guesswork because I did all my proper homework, and the mistake many people make is they do the opposite. They don't do any preparation. So they just jump on the phone, they start calling, and they if 10 people answer in the day, they'll book maybe a couple. That
Yeah.
didn't make any sense to me. Why not? It's to say you do more research and you only get to, you only 5 people connect, but you book all 5.
Yeah.
Like, you much rather have book 5 than to book 2, even though you did more work and you worked harder, but you're not working smart. You can work hard and smart to get better results.
Yeah. And one thing's interesting. You've worked in the true outside sales person. I mean, you're physically knocking on doors versus from a consulting standpoint, you're probably dealing with companies like you said, SaaS, or where it's not necessarily what I call the true field rep. Do you
Yeah.
feel that you have to structure your training? Is that rep, that inside, or that rep that deals mainly on the phone, different than that sales professional that's out in the field? I would call them in today's environment,
Yeah.
not as much out in the field, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reality is phone work is phone work, right?
Yeah,
And it's structured a little bit differently, right? And obviously your day is different because especially if you are in the SaaS world where you're just on the phones basically all day, right? Um, I would say it's a different type of drain. It's a different type of mental drain that you have. Like as a field rep, I would say you get the benefit of being outside in the fresh air. I mean, it rains a lot in Portland, Oregon, but you're at least outside. And there are some niceties to it, but also you encounter different situations, right? Like being out in the field doing like door to door. I did phone work and I did door to door. In the field, I would run in crazy situations. People have pulled guns on me. Dogs have attacked me. I've had all types of weird situations happen by being out in the field, right?
Yeah.
You don't deal with that on the phones, right? So it's a little bit different, but also you do learn different things that you can still apply on the phones. And that's where I think so many people on the phones, they lose some of that. They lose a little bit of being able to see the human interaction, right? Like I literally could test on the spot how I'd handle an objection face to face, right? Like, and I could see them.
Yeah.
And when you can see them, it's a little bit different. So you can really get real immediate feedback, right? And on the phones, you have to have massive emotional intelligence to be able to sense a change in their tone and their demeanor to make changes, right? And when you're new, you don't really know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So on the phones, you have to be even better on the phones, than you do face to face. You really do. Like I found that, and for me, once I got really good in the field, I got really good on the phones, but once I knew what I was doing, I'm like, oh, because I know training, I'm like, oh, these are things that have a better impact, right? And I would have to focus on different things to become better on the phone. So for example, on the phones, your pace, your tone, your inflection is absolutely vital, and those aren't as important face to face. They are still important, but on the phones, and since they can't see you, all they can visualize is a sleazy salesperson calling them.
Yeah.
So your ability to convey the absolute opposite of that on the phone is vital. And you can only do it because they can't see you. You can only do it through your pace, your inflection, your tone, and of course your attitude. So you have to really increase your skills there. And that's why even with, my training programs, I focus so much, not just on, I talk about scripting as a framework, templates, right? And it's really the other pieces. It's like a base layer of a cake, having a script, the words you say. And then the icing is going to be your pace, your inflection, your tone, and your attitude. And that's what makes the cake great to eat. Okay. So you need all of the above, and you have to understand that to be great on the phones. Otherwise, you will have to play the numbers game and just keep trying to dial. But on the phone, you have to be able to convey your energy and your enthusiasm through that dialer. So that person says, you know what? I have to meet with this person. I have no choice but to meet with them because I know they can take care of my problem. And that takes more skill. And like I mentioned earlier, when someone starts in those type of roles, they're not trained on that. They're just given a headset and they're like, go. Maybe a script if you're lucky. Maybe.
Yeah. Now, from a technical standpoint, how have you trained the people that you work with, whether it's an individual or a team, on using the social media and the personal branding and kind of blending that into their sales approach? Because I know you're great at it, but that takes practice.
Yeah, it does. And it's what's and I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because it's one of those things where I was doing quite a bit, and that's actually one big module that I had left out in my very first version of the program I built, because I didn't realize it was that important. Like I was already doing it, so I just kind of assumed people knew it, and then I realized I got all these questions about it, and that's like, so I've actually incorporated sense because I found it's so vital. But to answer your question, I believe those who are truly great at sales also have a good marketing mind as well. And you really need to have a combination of both to be truly successful in sales, especially in today's environment. And when I think about today, there are so many applications out there, right? So many social media platforms. Obviously there's LinkedIn, Facebook, IG, TikTok, and whatever else there is out there, YouTube, right? So your ability to build a good brand can make your job so much easier. And especially when I think about the value ladder or value scale, if you think about, on one end is, low, and the other end is high on the value. And when you think about low value things are very transactional items, like a restaurant, it's a very quick decision. Buying stuff on Amazon, it's very easy. You don't need much around there to make a purchasing decision, right? On the high end, like, what you sell right now, high ticket items, consulting, SaaS, things that are potentially more conceptual and, like they're of higher value. These could be, most time it's business to business, right? A lot of time when it gets to this level, it is harder to sell via the DM, right? And the further you are on the value scale, if you're on the high value area, you need more pre-framing of your prospect, meaning you need to warm them up more to you, the company, and everything you're all about. And potentially, if you are showing them a new way of doing things, something that's completely different, like a new opportunity, you need even more, pre-framing to warm them up. And let me explain what I mean. So, for example, I knew when I quit my job and I started my own business, I knew everything I'd done before was now irrelevant. It didn't matter. Nobody cares about my awards. Nobody cares about my rank. Nobody cares. I'm just another random dude on LinkedIn. I knew that, right? So I knew that in order for me to generate clients and revenue quickly and to build a brand, I had to make sure I position myself as an expert. And I knew it wouldn't be overnight, but I knew if I use a tool like LinkedIn, I could use it as a way to build up my brand and generate quite a bit of leads. I could warm up my prospects to go into my funnel to close, right? So, and that was really, really vital. And here's what I mean by that, right? So when I think about it's like LinkedIn to be specific, okay? Every single piece of your profile is bait for your target market, right? And if you do it right, it's attractive bait to your prospect, okay? And that goes from your headshot, your tagline, your banner, your about section, your featured section, your recommendations, your job history, your content, right? So if you think about this, if you were to like DM a prospect that you want to connect with, right, and you want to gain some business from them, if your profile is real generic, they're going to look at you like, I'm not sure about this person, whatever. They may or may not accept your request, right? If it's an email, they probably won't even respond, right? So, and if you are connected, they probably won't respond to your DM. So it's very, very unlikely because they don't know much about you. Now, if you can pre-frame them and use this tool to warm them up and move them down the value scale, you can warm them up. And here's what I mean. So for example, first off, your profile picture. Like if you look at mine, I intentionally wore a different color suit than most. It's a plaid suit and it's a little bit brighter than usual. It's a slight angle. I popped a filter on to make it pop, right? And I'm laughing because I want people like, oh, this guy is approachable, right?
Right.
So if they see me anywhere, like, oh, who's this guy? I might check him out. That's what they're going to do. Look at my profile, right? Next is my tagline. My tagline doesn't say, founder of Enlink Consulting. It says from Speedos to, from selling Speedos to 7-figure contracts. People are like, who is this guy? It's a pattern interrupt.
Right.
It hooks them right in, right? And then like, what does this guy do? It says in there, I help B2B sales professionals sell more and sell better. So they're like, oh, this is what this guy does.
Yeah.
Okay. It's crystal clear. My marketing is crystal clear. When they go right into my profile page, they're like, oh, let me see what this guy's all about. My banner, the backdrop said, hey, I got, I have a free group, sales tactics and strategies. Okay, cool. Okay, whatever. Maybe it's a little hesitant still.
Yeah.
They go into my about section. It's written as a story so they can read my background. I share personal stuff, to successes. So they're like, oh, okay, this guy is, I can trust this guy. He's likable. It's a bit of a hero story inside there so people can follow the journey and they're more likely to read the copy, right? Then from there, if they're like, okay, if they're still unsure, no problem. Check out my featured section. And in there, there's resources, there's social proof, etc. So like, okay, this guy is somewhat legit. Maybe, not sure. Then if they look at all my job history, they can see, okay, wow, this guy's actually like achieved some things. He's not like a one-hit wonder. He didn't like, he's not one of those guys who wasn't good at sales, so he became a trainer, right? Like I see a lot of those, right? So now they have more credibility. Okay, and if they're still unsure, no problem. Then they go down, they see the recommendations. Whoa. And they see there's 50 plus recommendations and they're very detailed. So now they're like, okay, so if there was any doubt in their mind, hopefully at this point, they're like, you know what? I somewhat trust this guy as a credible resource to help me achieve this. Right. And when people think that way, even before you get to content, if people think that way, now they're warmed up. So now they're more likely to accept a connection request, right? And then, of course, there's a whole outbound strategy with how I do DMs, right? That warms them up even more, right? And then you add in also content as well. So now, if you think about all those pieces together, are pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that warms a prospect up to make them more open to be, number one, prospected, and number two, become a future client. And even if they are not closed immediately, which is totally fine, they will be nurtured by my content. And when you think of it this way, every time you are putting out new content on LinkedIn that's of value to your target market, you are showing them you're an expert. So that way, when suddenly things change in their business and suddenly there is a need or something changes, they're thinking of you. And you're the first person they DM and reach out to and say, okay, you know what? Marcus, John, can you help me with X? Can we jump on a call? And it all ties together. And when you do it like this, right, it builds a lead gen system for you, right? So for example, with how I do this, in addition to how I post, I generate 8 to 12 warm leads daily into my funnel. And I'm not saying like, oh, people that like my content. I'm saying people literally go into my nurture sequences because I built them that way, right? I
Right.
built a system that generates leads that doesn't require me to go out and DM random people, right? So it's all very, very strategic. So,
Yeah.
so to answer your question, yeah, it's super vital to have a good social presence and build a good brand. Because you do it
Yeah.
right, it'll get you leads, it'll close you more deals, it'll give you a higher closing ratio. But it takes work, and it doesn't happen overnight. But when you do it right, it can really help you build a great funnel, regardless of whatever you sell. And you can do the same concept on any social media platform. But the key is go where your people are hanging out that are the ones, go where your fish are in the pond, right?
Right.
Don't go to like just the big ocean and throw your pole in and hope to catch something. Go where they actually are, and then you'll be more likely to catch the fish that you want.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think as a sales professional, especially, I think the younger people probably get that more. But maybe, you know, you don't need to be on every single platform. Pick one that you're and get real good at it, like you're talking about. That's
That's
where
it.
you need to be fishing. So if I said, Marcus, we're going to go to or University of Oregon, that's your alma mater, is that right?
Yes, that's
We're gonna
right. That's
we're
right.
gonna go there and we're gonna go talk to some ducks that are graduating. And what would you tell the ones that are interested in getting a career in professional sales? And then what would you say? Hey, here's you're interested in professional sales. What would you tell them? And what would you give them from a training standpoint as far as, hey, here's what you need to do to prepare yourself now?
Yeah, great question, right? First off, I'll congratulate them. I'm super biased. I mean, I love sales. Obviously, you're in sales. I never thought I'd be going to sales. I'll congratulate them, right? Because I think first off, there's still a stigma about sales, and probably will always be because of the media. And I'm sure if they have decided to go into sales, they probably had maybe parents or people question them on it, right? I remember when I first said I was going into sales. Some of the questions I had was, so what do you really want to do? Right. That was the question I got. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay. All right. Like, I don't know. Like, I'll congratulate them first off. Right. And, and I'll tell them, I mean, because at the end of the day, everything I've achieved in life is because I've learned how to sell. Right. From my wife that took me years to close down, right, to the things I've achieved in my life, to who I am today, my personality, and who have I become is because I was in sales, right? And we all start somewhere. I think it's really important that people have to understand that, right? Who I am today is not who I started, right? I
yeah,
started as a very quiet and insecure, salesperson. Not good. Questioned myself. I didn't have any confidence, right? And I would share them my story,
yeah,
just so they know that everyone starts somewhere. Not people aren't born salespeople. Oftentimes, the born salespeople are people that are like they come off sleazy anyways. They're kind of kind of used car salesy, if you will, right? No
yeah,
offense to people that sell used cars, but that's just how the vibe is. I'll say it's understand that it's a journey. And the next piece of advice I'll tell them, I'll say, listen, the most important thing you can do up front is invest in yourself as much as possible, right? But it's investing, it's making sure you don't choose from too many sources. Choose one or two key sources and learn from them. Doesn't have to be my stuff, but just choose someone that you know that has consistent success. And you only want to take advice from those who have achieved consistent success in what you want to achieve, right? And by understanding that, then what if they have training programs, do those things, because then this way you can have the best upfront, or the best upfront training to put yourself in a position to win. I believe some of the reasons I eventually figured out how to be successful, right, was because in my first year, I don't tell this to many people, but in my first year, I was like, when I first started in sales, like I struggled. You kind of read that in my ebook. I struggled. I wasn't very good. One thing I did, I don't think I put it in there, but I invested quite a bit in self-development. Now, I definitely went to the library and I got books, but I was buying up a lot of books and courses. I mean, that year, I was supposed to only make like $30,000 that year. That year, I spent about $10,000 in books and development and courses.
Wow.
And by doing that up front, it changes who you are, right? Like who you are today, who you are tomorrow is based on what you do today, right? And that old adage of, like the person you become, 10 years from now is based upon the books you read and the people you hang out with is absolutely true.
Right.
And I went after self-development like it was my job. And that's what I would tell anybody who is graduating, right? And it's not about just sales training, it's overall everything. As Jim Rohn said, when you work hard at your job, you make a living. When you work hard on yourself, you make a fortune. And I took that to heart once I uncovered that, because early on, I first went after sales books. Now, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Augment, all those guys. I read every single book possible on sales that was like popular. And
Yeah.
those were good to a certain extent, but it was the personal development books that took my life to a new level, right? Like being able to thing is, in sales, you will have rejection, especially when you're new or at any time. But by being able to train my mind was absolutely vital. So for example, after you have a tough day on the phones or tough day in the field of canvassing, like it's pouring down rain, everyone said no to me. When you get done, or even throughout the day, you naturally have ants crawl in your head. Ants as an automatic negative thoughts. And these ants crawl into your head and they're like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why do you suck at sales? Why is it so hard? Why does this make you a jerk? Why are they so mean to you? And the economy is falling apart. Why is the economy bad? Why is X happening? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you become an accountant? All these ants are crawling into your head. And before you know it, suddenly you have an infestation in your head of ants. And the only way to get rid of ants is you have to reframe your mind. So, and the way I learned was I had to ask myself better questions, right? And the problem was I was asking bad questions. So if I could ask better questions, I could train my mind. And when you train your mind to ask questions like, hold on, what can you learn from today? What was great about today? What did you learn from this gatekeeper? What could you do differently tomorrow to ensure this is not happening again? What could you say differently? What could you ask differently? How could you reposition your offer? What could you say? How could you change your tone? How can you improve? These now become empowerment questions. And I didn't know at the time, but by reading these books, it taught me how to reframe my mind, right? So I'll give you an example. I literally had on a Post-it card that I wrote on there, or an index card, I wrote on there, what did you learn today? How can this be great? Taped it in my visor in my car. After that super rough cold call where the gatekeeper is super rude to me, I'm like mentally defeating myself, go in my car, beat myself up, flip the visor down, read it. Okay. Reframe the mind, go. Take some more action. And by teaching myself these things and building these habits, it built my confidence up over time. And as you work on your development, over time, the more you work on it, it starts compounding. And you don't see the results immediately, but when you start investing into your own mind, right, which goes into your mind, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, your emotional health, when you start investing into those things heavily, 6 months down the road, you become a totally different person. And you're going to love that person because that person now has a better version of you. And each year you continue to do it compounds. And every year it compounds over and over and over and over. And here's like, I didn't even realize these things until probably 8 years later. I'm like, holy crap, like who have I become? Like I had no idea. Right?
Yeah.
Like I just thought I was just doing me. Right? And I kind of thought people all thought this way, and I realized many do not. So, if you are a fresh college grad, right, from U of O, wherever you graduated from, invest as much as you can and protect your mind as much as possible. Invest in things that are going to feed your mind and make you a better version of yourself. But don't go for just knowledge, go for application, right? So don't go just obsessing. And like, I mean, I went on a binge where for a few years, I would read 60 to 80 books a year. Like I was upset. I mean, you said books, I was obsessing
Yeah.
about learning. I was like, in this like consumption culture and wasn't applying. But once I started applying, my result skyrocketed. So I stopped reading that many books because it wasn't good. I wasn't like really digesting it, and I started applying. And by doing that, my results started skyrocketing every facet. So for example, when I realized it, I was studying. I was like teaching myself how to invest, and in 6 months time frame, I was applying things I learned, and my net worth increased 25% because I stopped obsessing about learning and started obsessing about applying, and that changed my game. And that applies to everything: sales, life. You want to learn a new language. You want to learn how to be a better father, better mother, whatever. Read and apply, and then focus on that piece, you know? So I went on a tangent there, but you know,
No, that's great
I'm
stuff.
fired up.
That's a ton of vitamins right there. I mean, that's a whole year's worth for somebody. That, I mean, I wish I had that. And I'm a big reader. I probably read, I don't know, 20 books a year, right around in there.
That's like a perfect number. Right?
And talk about your Facebook group that you have. I think it's pretty neat, and kind of the discussions you have on that, or just tell the listeners what that's about and why they probably need to at least check it out.
Yeah, so great. So I'll share with you why I even started to begin with, right? And it first started off with, first I got angry. And what I mean by that is I was on LinkedIn and I would see some really garbage advice getting posted there. Like when you've been in the field and you've done the job, you've carried the bag, you see what works, see what does not work, and you see some people like gurus or influencers posting them, like, oh no, why did you post that? Like people who don't know any better are going to try to do it and not have success. And if they're already in a mental spot where I'm very aware of mental health and like sales, like if they're already in a tough spot, they're going to try to do it and not see success. And I didn't like that, right? Because some of the stuff was basically pandering to reps, right? Making them feel good in the moment, but it wasn't any good. On top of that, I also saw there wasn't very much tactical advice being taught. A lot of fluffy things, right? And I get sometimes there's stuff was conceptual, I get that, but when everything is conceptual and there's no tactics involved and strategies to actually get real results, I'm like, I don't like that. I'm like, I want, and because LinkedIn's so noisy as well, I'm like, I want to create a place, a safe place where people can go and I can just help them. Like I can help them and I can like teach them things that are actually gonna get results, you know? And also, it was also for me, you know, selfishly, it's a great place for me to house some content that's free. So people, people like go, I say, hey, just go check this out. They have questions, right? Because I get a lot of questions via the DM, you know, and I get because not everyone can afford to, you know, to pay to you know, to be part of my program. I get that. So the Facebook group is fantastic. It's free. So I started this group about a couple months ago. Really didn't have. It was really kind of if people want a place to learn, I kind of lead them into there, right? And after a couple months, now we're about 550 plus members. It's a private group.
Wow.
But inside there, you know, people can post questions they need help on. They can get advice. People look for jobs in there. I post tactics, strategies. I do live trainings, and I'll jump on like Facebook. I wish LinkedIn had this option. They don't have it, but I would jump on and just do like lives within my group. I'll say, hey, listen, tomorrow I'm gonna be live 12 o'clock Pacific time. DM me any questions and I'll cover it on the spot, or just show up and just ask me any questions. So I'll go up and just anything they ask about. What should I say here? What should I tell me? Say this, do this, stop doing that. And I'll give them real on the spot feedback on how to improve their game, right? And then of course, like, you know, I'll do like free webinars, so I'll run like a free training. So for example, last week, I didn't have time to run a webinar, so I pre-recorded a training for my group in there, and it was 5 proven ways to shorten your sales cycle. Right, a very robust, very tactical training, specific things to say, exactly what to do. How do you isolate and shorten down your sales cycle? And I upload it for them. Right, so then this way they can watch at their leisure. Right, massively impactful. Before that, I did one on because I kept getting questions. Hey, what do I say on my LinkedIn DM to that outbound prospect? So I taught them exactly what to say, exactly how to format, exactly what to put in your message to the outbound, exactly what to say, exactly how you structure, exactly how the video looks, exactly how you follow up. So literally it's step by step. So this way it's crystal clear. And it's very intentional because what I want them to do is walk away from that training like, okay, if I do X, I will get Y result, right? And again, there's nothing ever, nothing you won't get 100% results on everything, but the
Right.
goal is they watch it and they get some impact, right? So they go in there, so it's very impactful. So today I saw a post this morning. One of the members, a great question, sales leaders, like, hey, here's the situation. Here's my team. Top of the funnel leads are really, really good quality. Middle funnel, it's still really good, but it's taking longer to convert, and some deal sizes, have been a little shorter. And bottom of the funnel it's been decent still. How would you coach someone who's struggling with middle funnel stuff? Great question, right? So I'm answering, but on top of that, the community is answering. And I love that because I understand there's many ways to skin a cat. How I do things won't be perfect for everyone. So everyone's jumping in and they're contributing to our conversation. And I think it's really, really powerful, right? Because I have some big rules in there, which is they're simple. There's no spamming in there, no selling anything. Like, don't try to like be spammy. You go in there to learn. That's the goal.
Right.
Learn. So it's been really, really amazing. Just it's over time. It's sort of like I can see it snowballing. More and more and more people are joining. But also on top of that, people are getting the impact from it, right? And if eventually, here's the reality: someone will eventually want to become clients of mine. That's great. If not, no problem at all. Either way, it's a great resource that they can go into, check the tag topics for whatever they want to check on: prospecting, closing, LinkedIn DM, social selling. I mean, I even did a training on how do you win every job interview. Like, I mean, literally, because people could ask, like, listen, I'm like, oh, I just lost my job. I'm like, okay, I literally have interviewed thousands of people over the last like 14 years. Let me
Yeah.
teach you exactly how to structure your answers. Let me teach you exactly the type of questions they're going to ask. Let me teach you exactly how to format the way you do things. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to simplify it for people so they see massive value.
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to do the group. It's becoming a full-time job, so I have to be careful with that. But it's a lot of fun and helps people really excel in their craft, right, and learn.
Yeah.
I really like it. I'm biased though, of course.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, I got one more question for you, but
Sure.
before we do this last question, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you. What's
Yep.
the best way to get a hold of you? How do they get in that Facebook group? And then how do they get that ebook? Because you listeners need to download that ebook. It's short, it's simple, it's concise, but it's got 7 steps in there that your return on that ebook is huge.
I appreciate that, right? So, I mean, the cool part is like 99% of my stuff is completely free, right? So, super easy way. If you are on LinkedIn, just look me up, Marcus Chan. It's the only guy as of today's recording that has Speedos in the tagline, right? So, right on there, you can connect with me. You can send me DMs. I handle all my own DMs, right? And in my featured section, you will see right inside there are the links. It's very easy. So you can go right to my Facebook group, which is private. You can also just go right to this link, which is www.sellmoresellbetter.io, right? www.sellmoresellbetter.io, or just head to Facebook and look up Real B2B Sales Talk. That's really easy too. And also the link also for the ebook is right inside my feature. It's probably the easiest way to go to that as well. But if you wanted that, it's marcuschan.io/tips-2. That's more complex, but that's why I go there. And then, of course, feel free to DM me on any platform as well, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.
Awesome. So, all you listeners, make sure that you check that out and check all those places out. Last question for you. So, I know today you're going to talk to someone or some group or somebody, and here's my question. You can only give them one sales vitamin to help them succeed today. What's that one sales vitamin you leave with them?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so if I was to give one simple sales vitamin, right, and let's just assume let's focus on prospecting, okay? And I shared this on on LinkedIn. I think it's such a great point to bring up again, right? The first 15 to 20 seconds is absolutely vital, okay? And before I give you the vitamin, most people when they make that outbound call, they say something like, hey, John, my name is Marcus. I'm with, Bentley Consulting. And, how are you today? Well, that's like 99% of the sales calls I hear. So number one, get rid of that. That's vitamin number one. Get rid of that. Stop saying that. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, because number one, it's disingenuous, right? You don't care how they are, and they don't care how you are. Okay, so don't ask it. And they know it's a sales call, right? And they're already annoyed already. Okay, so instead, you want to replace it with this vitamin. And it's going to sound like this: Hi, John. It's Marcus. Thanks for taking my call. That's it. Okay, and let's break that down very simply so you understand the psychology behind it. When you say it's Marcus versus my name is Marcus, it's Marcus denotes psychologically that they know you. So this is a slight pattern of like, hold on, it's Marcus. Who is that? So that it makes them think for a second, right? Which is fine. Okay. So psychologically, that's the first step. And then the next thing, you say, your name, right? It's Marcus. I forgot to mention with Bentley Consulting, it's Marcus with Bentley Consulting. Thanks for taking my call. The reason I'm calling is this. So now you're not saying, how are you? You just ignore that, right? And you're just saying, thanks for taking my call. Boom. The reason I'm calling is blank. Now within 10, 15 seconds, they're like, okay, they're Marcus with this company. They're going to at least go why they're calling. And they now know you can go right to the point versus most people take a lot of time, trying to warm up their prospect. But how many strangers do you know really enjoy talking to other strangers to get warmed up? Like none. Like when someone rings my doorbell, I'm like, who is there? Who's in my doorbell? I don't want to open my door now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like human beings are programmed a different way now. So people don't care about this. So get right to the point. Hi, it's your name with your company. Thanks for taking my call. The reason I'm calling is this. Now, some people can also remove thanks for taking my call and just go right to the reason I'm calling, which is fine. Most people I find instinctually like to say, how are you without realizing it. So they need to replace it, right? And the best way to get rid of a habit is replace it with a new habit. And the new habit is thanks for taking my call. And when you do this, you get right to the point, you'll gain trust faster. It's super professional. And ultimately, it's so simple. You feel better. You don't have the anxiety of, what are they going to say after how are you, right? Oh, I'm awful. Why are you calling? Oh, my dog died. Oh, this happened. Oh, this, I have to go to the hospital today. I got to do this. That's all limited. And you get right to the point. You can get right into exactly why you called. You can ask for the appointment, right? And progress that call from there. So that's my one very simple vitamin that you can literally do immediately after this podcast.
Awesome. And you'll get more appointments because of that.
You get more appointments.
Yeah, it's a great vitamin. Well, Marcus, man, it's been awesome. I can't wait for people to hear this and just get the value that you've just talked about. It's one of the things I enjoy about doing this podcast. It's kind of like a every time I do it, it's a lesson for me. So it's just, I think there's going to be so much value for the listeners. So I appreciate you just taking time out of your day. I know your time is valuable. I appreciate you coming on today and just being so genuine and sincere.
John, thank you so much. It's my absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate it. I'm all happy to be here.
Awesome.